I found out I was dating my half-brother. My name is Vanessa, I'm 24, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I've always been a pretty normal person. I work as a graphic designer at a small agency, have my own apartment, friends, nothing out of the ordinary. What you need to understand about my story is that I was raised solely by my mom, Jennifer. My biological father was never part of my life. Literally never. My mom was always vague about him. She'd just say they met at a college party, had a brief relationship, and when she found out she was pregnant, he had already moved to another state for a new job. She never wanted to talk about the details, and I eventually stopped asking when I was a teenager. 8 months ago, I met Ethan at a coffee shop in the Pearl District. He was in line in front of me and spilled his entire drink on himself while reaching for his phone. It was so awkward that I couldn't help but laugh, and he turned bright red. I offered him some napkins from my bag, and we started talking. Ethan is 26, works as a software engineer at a startup, was born and raised in Seattle, and moved to Portland 2 years ago for work. Physically, we're very different. I'm short, brunette, brown eyes, and he's tall, blonde, blue-eyed. Our personalities are different too. I'm more outgoing and impulsive. He's more reserved and methodical. What stood out to me from the beginning was how genuinely interested he was in getting to know me. It wasn't just small talk or an attempt to get my number. He asked questions about my design projects, my hobbies, my opinions on random things. We ended up talking for 3 hours about everything and nothing. When we finally left, he asked for my number in the sweetest, most shy way. Our first official date was at the Portland Art Museum. Ethan admitted he didn't know much about art but wanted to learn because he knew I loved it. Throughout the date, he asked thoughtful questions and genuinely listened to my explanations. Then we went to a cozy restaurant on Hawthorne and talked until they closed. It was perfect in a way I had never experienced before. The following months were the best of my life. Ethan became both my best friend and my boyfriend. He introduced me to his world. I met his coworkers, some of his friends in Portland, and even video chatted with his parents who still live in Seattle. Luke and Linda were lovely people who treated me like family from day one. Ethan met my mom, my friends, and blended seamlessly into my social circle. What surprised me most were all the little things we had in common. We were both obsessed with true crime podcasts, had the same very specific favorite cereal that only sells at an expensive gourmet store, hated horror movies but loved psychological thrillers, had the same weird fear of butterflies, I know, ridiculous, and 100 other little things that made our connection feel destined. 3 weeks ago, Ethan suggested it was time we introduced our families properly. His parents were coming to Portland for a business conference his dad was attending, and Ethan thought it would be the perfect opportunity to host a dinner where everyone could meet in person. I was nervous but excited. My mom was anxious too. She hadn't dated in years and rarely socialized with new people. Dinner was planned for last Friday at my apartment. I spent the whole week planning the menu, deep cleaning, and buying expensive wine I couldn't afford. Ethan came early to help with final preparations, and he was just as nervous as I was. He kept checking his hair and asking if his shirt looked okay at least 10 times. My mom arrived first, bringing a dessert she had made. She looked beautiful. She had gone to the salon that morning and bought a new dress. I hadn't seen her that dressed up and happy in a long time. We chatted in the kitchen while finishing up the food, and she said she was curious to meet the parents of the wonderful young man who had stolen her daughter's heart. When the doorbell rang, my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. Ethan went to answer while my mom and I set the table. I heard voices in the hallway, Ethan chatting excitedly with his parents, introducing me from a distance. Then they walked into the dining room. What happened next felt like time stopped. Linda, Ethan's mom, walked in smiling and saying something about how charming the apartment was. But when she saw my mom, her face went completely white. She froze mid-sentence and stared at my mom like she'd seen a ghost. My mom had the same reaction. The dish she was holding slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor with a loud crash. She stood there trembling, looking at Linda with an expression I had never seen before. Fear, shock, and something that looked like guilt. Luke, Ethan's dad, was the first to speak. He looked between my mom and Linda and said in a strange voice, "Jennifer? Jennifer Morrison?" My mom just nodded, still speechless. Ethan and I were completely lost. He asked how his parents knew my mom, and Linda finally said, "We knew each other in college a long time ago." But something was seriously wrong. The tension in the air was unbearable and everyone seemed to be hiding something. My mom eventually suggested they speak privately. Linda agreed immediately. Ethan and I stayed in the living room while our parents went to the kitchen. We could hear muffled voices, occasionally louder, but couldn't make out the words. Ethan was just as confused as I was. He said his parents had never mentioned knowing a Jennifer, and their reaction didn't make sense if they were just old classmates. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, they came back to the room. Everyone had grim expressions. My mom sat beside me and took my hand. Linda did the same with Ethan. My mom began to speak, her voice shaking. "Vanessa, sweetie, there are things about your origins I never told you because I thought it was best. But now?" She looked at Linda, who nodded encouragingly. "Luke is your biological father." The words took a few seconds to register. I looked at Luke, then Ethan, then back at my mom. Ethan had the same stunned expression I probably had. Linda continued. "When Luke and I got married, he told me about Jennifer and about you. We tried to find you several times over the years, but your mom had moved and changed her name. Luke always wanted to be part of your life, but he respected Jennifer's decision to raise you alone. My mom explained she had changed our last name when I was a baby because she wanted a fresh start and didn't want complications. She thought it would be easier for everyone if Luke moved on with his life and she with hers. But the real bomb was yet to come." Ethan, who had been silent the entire time, finally asked, "So Vanessa is my sister?" "Half-sister," Luke corrected gently. "You have a half-sister." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan and I looked at each other, and I saw the same horror on his face that I felt. We had been dating for 8 months. We were in love. We had talked about living together, about the future, about marriage, and we just found out we're siblings. The rest of the night was a blur. Our parents tried to soften the blow, explaining that there was no way we could have known, that it wasn't anyone's fault, that these things happen. But how do you process something like this? How do you deal with the fact that the person you love, who you've been intimate with, who you planned a future with, is your brother? Ethan left soon after the conversation ended. He said he needed time to process everything and that we'd talk later. But we haven't. He hasn't answered my texts or calls. I understand. I don't know what to say either. I spent the whole weekend at home alternating between crying and feeling numb. My mom tried to talk to me, explain her choices, apologize, but I'm still processing it all. Part of me is furious at her for hiding something so important. Another part understands she was trying to protect me. But mostly, I just feel lost. The worst part is that my feelings for Ethan didn't just disappear. I still love him. I still miss him. I still think about him constantly. But now that love feels dirty, wrong, forbidden. How do you turn off 8 months of genuine feelings? How do you stop loving someone just because you found out something awful about your connection? I also keep thinking about all those coincidences we found so cute. Were they really coincidences? Or things we shared because we're siblings? The same phobia, the same tastes, the same way of thinking about certain things. Now everything feels tainted by this revelation. Yesterday, Ethan finally texted me. He said he talked extensively with our parents, and he wants to try to maintain some sort of relationship with me, though obviously not romantic. He suggested that maybe we could be friends, eventually, once things become less weird. But how do you become friends with someone who was your boyfriend? How do you look at someone you kissed, were intimate with, and try to see them as a brother? This morning, I woke up hoping it had all been a horrible dream. For a few seconds before I was fully awake, I thought about texting Ethan to say I missed him. Then reality hit like a punch in the gut. I don't know what to do now. I don't know how to move forward. I don't know how to build a father-daughter relationship with Luke after 24 years. I don't know how to forgive my mom for hiding this from me. I don't know how to stop loving Ethan. I don't know how to go back to normal knowing everything has changed forever. None of my friends know anything yet. How do I explain that my perfect boyfriend disappeared because we found out we're siblings? How do I tell a story this bizarre without sounding like I'm lying or exaggerating? Work has been impossible. I can't concentrate on anything. My boss asked me yesterday if I was okay, and I nearly broke down right there. I told her I was going through a complicated family issue, which is technically true. The craziest part of all this is that, aside from that catastrophic revelation, Ethan is still the same wonderful person I met at the coffee shop. He's still kind, smart, funny, loving. All the qualities that made me fall in love with him are still there. The only thing that changed is what I now know about our biological connection. I know some people will say I should get over it, that it's not like we were raised together as siblings, that we didn't know. But it's not that simple. I can't just ignore the fact that we share the same father. I can't pretend that doesn't change everything. I also wonder about the future. Ethan and I are going to see each other at family events now. Are we supposed to pretend we're just siblings who met as adults? Can we build a normal sibling relationship? Or will this always be strange and uncomfortable for everyone involved? Luke has been trying to contact me. He wants to talk, to meet his daughter, to make up for lost time. Part of me wants that too. I always wondered about my father. Always wanted a father figure in my life. But it's too complicated now. How do you build a father-daughter bond with your ex-boyfriend's dad? How do you navigate that without everything feeling off? This situation is so surreal that I sometimes wonder if I'm losing my mind. Things like this don't happen in real life, do they? But here I am, living my own modern Greek tragedy. I needed to get this off my chest, even if it's just to strangers on the internet. I don't know what advice anyone could give for something this bizarre, but at least now I'm not carrying this burden alone.
Comment. What would you do in this situation? If you like this video, don't forget to like and share so we can bring you more stories like this. Keep an eye out for more stories. Hope you have a good day.